So tell us about, the journey into this, what got you interested in transplant and some of the experiences you've had.
Yeah, it's an amazing field. I mean, it's mystical in many ways. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
you're turning around people's life. I mean, and I say that immodestly. I mean, I don't think it's all due to me, but I think that you really are taking someone who's looking at death right in the eye, and then you turn that around. And that's a great feeling for them. It's a great feeling for the people that provide that kind of care. And my first two books were focused a lot on that, but there was something else going on in the hospital when patients would tell me about their own spirituality,
Okay.
their own belief in God. And then I started seeing these near death experiences, people that literally in the ICU in front of me had died, had come back and had told me, their experience. And it got me thinking quite a bit, especially for somebody that didn't have much religion in their life. It
And what
got me,
sort of things were they telling you that were making you ponder and think?
and I write about this in the book. Um, what I think is really interesting is how comforted people that had a religious background were when they were facing this life and death situation.
Right.
In fact, when they went to the other side, as it were, they would tell me how wonderful it was. And in fact, I tell the story in the book of one patient who said, "Why did you bring me back?" And she was sort of upset with me. And I said,
Hang on, I
"Well,
was having a good time. We should have phoned and asked me.
yeah," I said, it's my job to bring you back." Um, And I said, "Well, what did you see?" And what she said, it was just the most secure, comfortable. My my dogs were there, who had passed. Everybody in the family who I cared about was there, who had passed. Um, I I've had doctors that have experienced the exact same thing said that's nonsense. It was the ICU medication, or they had seen that on TV or something. I I don't know. It sounded very convincing to me.
Okay. I mean,
So
I don't know, but what I do know is that I think when people have those types of experiences, as a psychologist, I prefer that they come back benign and happy rather than terrified, sort of without
yeah,
doubt. And sort of like, I don't wish terror of death on anyone. I've seen the results of that.
no, I couldn't agree more. And I've seen people terrified of dying as well. But
Yeah.
this group of people weren't, and especially after that experience, they were like, whatever
I'm sure
happens,
it was
happens.
transformative. It was like, I can face anything now. I mean, there's a whole branch of psychotherapy around called existential therapy, which is literally designed to help people deal with the fear of ending. Because our existence is, as the physical sense, is finite. That's it. That's the truth. And we have to come to terms with that we only have a certain amount of time around. Um, this sort of, you didn't use the word emptiness. I'm not going to use that word. It's a common thing I've come across with people who weren't given a religion as a child. I mean, what I mean is that offered a religious culture rather than have it rammed down their throat. Um, but so, for example, I was brought up in a Catholic tradition. I wouldn't consider myself to be Catholic, but I got to make that choice. And friends of mine that I know who weren't given that choice, so they weren't able to say, no, I don't want it, but later on in life do feel that they missed out on something. And it seems to me you're saying something similar, that somehow you weren't given access to that as a child to make up your own mind about.
I think that's exactly it. I mean that, and that for me was important. What's interesting is I have two older sisters who were born and lived in the same house I did.
Yeah,
They don't think about it at all.
yeah.
So I think it's obviously something that was within me that kind of gnawed at me, and like a lot of writers, the things that gnaw at me, I want to write about. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's part of the human condition. And there were specific reasons why both your parents rejected religion. Your
Yeah,
mother because of the civil rights movement, your father because of the Holocaust. It's interesting because I know a lot of Jewish people embraced their religion much more. Do you
right.
understand what his decision was and why he made that?
Yeah, yeah. In terms of Holocaust survivors, either first generation, second generation, or even third generation, it seems like those folks go one of two ways: either embrace it deeply,
Yeah,
or say, well, if that's what religion is and that's what religion gets me, no thank you.
yeah.
And my father was clearly in the second camp. And in fact, his name was Hans Weil, a very German sounding name. And I asked him once when I was a little boy, why didn't he name me Hans? Because a lot of my friends had their father's name. And he said, I wouldn't do that to you. And it's interesting how being Jewish to him and to people like him was something that could get you into a lot of trouble and get.
Well, yeah. I mean, it could today as well. I mean, maybe not to the same extent, but there's a lot of danger and intolerance around at the moment around these issues.
I think so.
Without, I mean, there is without a doubt. It's there. Um, so you're doing this life and death stuff. You're meeting people who have these near-death experiences, and you're meeting a cohort of people who have these near-death experiences who are like, "Why did you bring me back?"
Yeah.
That's quite nice. And that for you started to bring up some questions, I guess. What sort of questions was he bringing up for you?
Well, it made me think that, first of all, that religion could provide a lot of comfort.
Yeah,
And as I moved along in life and, things happened, I needed that. And there was things that I saw at work that upset me just because I don't like losing patients that are my responsibility.
yeah.
And that started to affect me deeply. So I turned to religion as a way to say, if it worked for those folks, maybe it'll work for me too. And I'm not the first person that's done that, obviously.
Mm.
And I started reading the Bible
Yeah.
because I thought it was as good a place to start as any. And I got one of these daily readers and spent a whole year reading through the Old and New Testament, and then did it again a second time, and then did it again a third time. And I'm glad I did because I really wanted to see a lot of, obviously there's a lot of conversation out there about the Bible, but I wanted to see actually what it said. I didn't want somebody else's interpretation. I wanted to see what it said. And so I was glad to have that experience.
Okay. And what do looking back on that, sort of your having that experience, particularly as a scientifically trained person, reading a text like that, what was it like for you?
Yeah, I struggled more with the Old Testament than the New.
Did you? Right.
Yeah, I did. I mean, the stories are fantastical, and they're a little hard to buy. People living for hundreds and hundreds of years,
Yeah.
and you know, but it's storytelling in a way that probably was appropriate 2,000 years ago. But the
I mean,
met
it's pre sort of literate culture.
right,
Kind
right,
of it's passing on messages through stories and oral culture. They would have been told orally, and then somebody wrote them down, and the
right.
person who wrote them down would have been thought of as quite magical because language was, the Bible was quite a magical thing, just simply because most people couldn't read or write, right? Um,
That's right. And and but the struggles are the same, right? I mean,
yeah,
we have as humans, we deal with the same things. Obviously, there's no concern about social media or back then or politics or whatever happens to be upsetting you at the moment, but it's dealing with the same thing.
I mean, I think there are, the stories of Noel, the stories of extinction, etc. That
Yeah,
there are, fears of extinction now. So it's hardly news, right? Um, and the human race has gone through sort of quite difficult times.